Yes, so we're live. I'm here with Shawn Ruby. Shawn, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. We're complete strangers, but we met recently on Twitter. So maybe just for me and for the few listeners that I do have on my podcast, start from the beginning. Introduce yourself. What was it like growing up as Shawn Ruby in the Ruby household? Were you exposed to religion as a child? What were your first inklings that there's this creature, not this creature, this creator called God, and that there's such a thing as religion, Christianity? What are your first experiences with God and religion? And just sort of talk us through the whole upbringing up until today with just touching on the highlights that you think are good to touch on.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so how would you call it? We were definitely Christian growing up. But I think about like the age of 19, uh well actually I'm Protestant, so we grew up with Baptist first, and then like after a year we went to Lutheran, which was our grandmother's church. Our other grandmother, our first grandmother, was Baptist. And then after that, like about 13 or something like that, our neighbor took us over to another church, which was like evangelical. It was a Church of Christ. And so we went over there when we were like 13. We did that for like a couple years. And then I think, I don't know, I sort of fell off it or whatever, but I didn't know anything like theological or anything like that. So I just, I liked the community, and that was something that I really appreciated. Um, and to a degree, I liked the message. So that was something I really agreed with. But about like 19 or something like that, I guess that's when I started getting questions. But particularly, I had a dream where I was about to die or something, and then like I was too late to uh, ask for forgiveness or whatever, and it freaked me out. So I asked one of my friends who was Christian, stuff like that, and so I spent like I think a solid day thinking about it, and I ended up, how would you call it? I concluded that God didn't exist. So that was my conclusion after a day or whatever. But then eventually I joined into the new atheists, like the anti-theist. I was atheist, but then I became like anti-theist once I found the community. And I did that for like a year or something, and then like politics made everything, messed up. So everybody got confused inside the whole community, like which side to join, Trump or Clinton or whatever. And in any case, so after that, I did politics for a while, and I found out it was a dead end. But I was very certain about my beliefs, and so I got really into philosophy, like Plato and stuff like that. And I was going to try and prove my politics, and I ended up not being able to prove it. But I did end up finding there was a lot of overlap between my philosophical beliefs and what Christianity was. And so I slowly like kept going more over into Christianity until finally it became more of a litmus test. And I was like, obviously, there's God there, you know.
Cool. Very cool. So, how old are you today?
32.
You sound a bit younger, but maybe it's just because I'm getting older. Um, So what's the situation with the parents and the siblings? Where are they on the spectrum of Christian to agnostic and atheist and all that stuff today?
Yeah, well, I talked to my brother, and he's how would you call it? He's atheist. So
Oh,
I ended up yeah, I ended up asking him. I was like, y'all are Christian? And he was just like, no, we're not. I guess he never really thought about it, but like he went through the same thing with me. He's like a year younger than me, and he has you know, he got a family and stuff like that. But
oh, okay.
yeah, we just different paths, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No problem. Everyone's got to find their own path. Let's just hope and pray that everyone comes to Christ before it's too late. I mean, I don't want to dwell on the negative, but hell is real.
Yeah.
Um, and your folks are still alive and they're Christian today, or
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. My dad and my mom. Yeah. I don't
nice.
know about my sister. I have no idea what she is, to be honest.
Uh, well, you can send her my way. I'll interview her and I'll find out all about her
Yeah,
worldview.
sure. Yeah.
So, remind me, where are you geographically?
The United States. I'm
Yeah,
in the eastern part of the United
the
States right
eastern
now.
parts. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm in the eastern part of Canada. I'm in Montreal, Quebec.
It's very nice. Yeah.
Have you
I'm
been?
from Texas. I'm from Texas, but I've moved around so much, like countries and everything, and I'm out
Ah,
here. Yeah,
and
but I am from
so
Texas.
what's your favorite country you'd visited?
Probably China, but
Oh,
inside Europe, probably Greece.
wow, yeah, yeah, that's my favorite. I married a Greek girl.
That's very nice.
Yes.
Have you visited Greece?
Yeah, I actually lived there. I went there once for a couple months and then I lived there for about a year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Did
Beautiful.
you see? Yeah, yeah, it really is. It's really nice. They have the trees and stuff like that, which have the plants or fruit or whatever
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
I have like a little test I do to decide which country, whether it's a third world country or first world, not in a negative sense, uh, but it's how much they honk, and in yeah, I mean, you go to the Philippines or something like that. It's just like a lady told me it's like express yourself or something. That's exactly what they do. In Greece, it's a little more like that. In Germany, there was like a crash almost, like an almost crash, and nobody honked and just went on with their day.
Restraint and discipline.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Well, a shout out to my friend Matthew, Matthew Bates, if you're listening in Australia. I guess Australia is a third world country now because Matthew bought a condo and there's a lot of honking going on outside of his condo, and he's having trouble hearing his own thoughts. So this is a shout out to third world Australia. So, so any other highlights you want to tell me about any mystical, magical moments in your journey to Christianity, or was it all just in your head, in your intellect, in your reason? And
Yeah,
was there any mystical part that was more heart connection?
I wish I could say that. I'm not very a very mystical person. So yeah, it's been mostly just logical reason, like it's the back of my hand that God exists if I exist. I've been actually seeing it on Twitter a lot lately. If you know, like if I exist, then God exists. You need fundamental being for it to exist, and you have partake in being. So obviously, pure being exists.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. My journey to God was 100% intellectual, philosophical. I was many things over the years, but I lost my Christian faith and my faith in God generally at the age of 14. I had a beautiful dream about Jesus. I woke up and I'd lost my faith. It was very counterintuitive. But 25 years of atheism, most of which was a nice guy, hippie, peace and love agnosticism. And then at the end, it got darker and darker as I studied philosophy of the West. And I ended up being an atheistic Satanist and a hard solipsist. But you know, my journey to God was very, very, very intellectual, and it's all about the I am, that existence, that subsistent being that is God, the necessary being, that than which nothing greater can be conceived. So I think we're similar in that way. We have a predilection for philosophy, and we're gonna do a fun little quiz together once we get past the biographical stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a yeah.
What are you reading these days? Like, are you deep into Christian philosophy, or are you more interested in other things when it comes to reading? Do you read every day?
No, I don't get to read every day. I haven't been able to read every day in about like 2 years, but no, my goal is I want to learn Attic Greek and then I want to read the Bible in Greek and the early philosophers. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
ambitious. That's very
yeah,
ambitious.
yeah. It seems a bit easier. They have a lot of they have a Latin thing where you just read the stories and it tells you, and I think Athanase is the Greek version of it.
Okay,
I don't know if I'll use it, but they do have a lot more how would you call it, sources now.
nice. It's a beautiful language. It's a nice sounding language too. At least the modern Greek is anyway. And yeah, it's got a nice alphabet, nice script, which I like.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's just it's there's nothing more romantic than thinking about Socrates and Plato. For me, that's the highlight of philosophy right there. If you know, obviously, without getting into the Christian stuff, like the Christian stuff will top that. But as far as non-Christian philosophy, I'm very, very, very excited about Socrates and Plato.
no doubt. Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. In terms of Christian philosophers, are you a big fan of Saint Augustine, Saint Anselm, Saint Bonaventure, Saint Thomas? Do you like any of those guys?
Yeah, I definitely like Augustine a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think he's really good. I do like the Eastern tradition too. I think they had a lot of good ones too.
yeah,
But Augustine is definitely a big one. Aquinas is okay, but I'm not Aristotelian,
yeah,
although I do respect Aristotle like a lot. So I'm
yeah,
way more Platonist.
for sure. 100%, 100% right there with you. And I scored pretty low on the Aristotle on that quiz that we're going to do together.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I have a begrudging respect for him, especially since my church, the Catholic Church, emphasizes, like they sort of baptized Aristotle, and I think they went a little bit over the top with that, but I would have liked to have a little bit more of the Franciscan school, like Blessed John Duns Scotus. Do you know him?
Yeah, Erigena is the first one or the second one?
I don't know if that's the same guy. Erigena, that's just the Gaelic word for Irish or something.
That's right. Yeah, or that's the Scotland or whatever. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think it's the both of them or whatever. But
I think it's the
at
same
that
guy. I think
time,
it's the same guy, but I'm not sure.
yeah, there are two John the Scots. I like both of them.
Okay. Okay.
And
I didn't realize there are two, so I'm gonna have to look into that and distinguish them.
but you said Scotus, so Duns Scotus.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's the second one.
that's the second one. Okay, okay,
That's the
okay.
second one. Yeah,
Did you
sorry.
read any Anselm at all?
No, but I've read about his life and I do like him.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Cool guy, very cool guy. I was a big fan before I was Christian. I was a big fan of Spinoza. Did you like him at all?
Yeah, he's okay. I've read a bit about him. I do like his metaphysics. I think it's really good. I do like the rationalist movement.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a
Uh,
bit of a rationalist. My journey to God came through rationalism via Rene Descartes of all people.
nice, yeah.
You like
Um,
him?
yeah. He's really good. I like his Cartesian metaphysics. I like his philosophy of science, where he tries to have a completely rational science. And I really
Yeah.
think that's the most important thing to,
That
for modern science to
that
do.
that brought me to God. That brought me to God. Like his foundational his radical doubt brought me to God. Like this is the most surprising thing about my conversion. It was the application of radical doubt, Cartesian radical doubt, which he used to build the foundations of modern science. And I think he's missing out on a lot of the Aristotelian uh, points that would help to moderate today's science, which has gone off the rails. It's completely disconnected
Yeah,
because we can go into the details on that if you want. But
yeah,
it was just ironic that, I was a atheistic Satanist reading this radical doubt of Rene Descartes, and boom, I found God. It's so counterintuitive. So counterintuitive.
yeah. Uh, do you know the Neoplatonists?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
Neo?
yeah, yeah. What's his name? Is it Philo? Is that the guy? No, not Philo.
That's
No, that's the Jewish guy. What's
yeah,
the
yeah.
the famous guy with the one there?
There's Plotinus and
Yeah,
then
that's the one.
Proclus. Yeah, yeah.
Plotinus and
Proclus. I
okay,
think that's how you
I
pronounce it.
don't
Yeah.
know Proclus so much.
Yeah. Well, I don't know which one it is, but one of them has an epistemology where obviously they have the one, and they try to get back to it. So one of them said you have to cut down on pieces so you can get down to the pure aspect of it, so you can get to it. And so I wonder if that has a correlation or something with the doubting or something like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Like it's like okay, I don't like William of Ockham, but I basically used Occam's razor to get to God. Like it's just like what
That's interesting.
what's what can I not know with certainty? Well, pretty much everything. Like there's not much that we can know other than I am.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it's a
yeah.
short leap once you realize that there's just being per se, being subsistent being. It's either one of two options, like I am God or God is God. That's about it. Like am I the source of my, I had to ask myself honestly, am I the source of my own existence, yes or no? If I am, which I thought I was because I was a heart solipsist, if I am, then I'm God, and if I'm not, then God is God.
Yeah,
What a relief that was
yeah.
to admit that. Did you feel a great relief when you came to monotheism?
Yeah, I definitely did. Yeah, it was just like a moment. It was just like a moment.
Yeah, where were you?
Uh, what? I was philosophically still with Plato or something
No, no,
like
no,
that.
no, but
And,
geographically, like, were you in your car? Were you at your mom's house? Where were you?
oh, I was in Washington State.
Yeah. Do you remember the moment?
Yeah,
Like, were you brushing your
I did.
teeth or?
No, I was just how would you call it? No, I was just in an apartment, and then I just it was just like a realization real quick. I don't remember.
Okay. Because I remember
Sorry.
the exact, I remember, well, it's okay. You don't have to remember every detail of your life, but I thought it was a momentous occasion. And I do remember the exact moment I lost my faith and the exact moment I came back to my faith in God. And those two memories are etched in my brain, so to speak.
Nice.
And I was, for me, it was when I came back when I was reading Rene Descartes' Discourse on Method, and boom, it's just,
Don't don't you like how like a lot of the philosophers they were historically, Christian, and even looking at like Aristotle, like you said, they tried to baptize Aristotle, but even Plato, like they're inside this polytheistic place, and you see how everybody, reasonably they lead towards this monotheism, they lead towards this God. You even look at like Sol Invictus, you look at the I don't think whatever the Egyptian one was for the
uh,
slight bit, they all lean towards what God is. They all try to understand what God is.
yeah.
And yeah, and obviously the distinguishing part is, as Christians we have logos, uh, which is the contrib which is an ontological basis for understanding, who God is, and which fulfills, obviously the Old Testament.
You know, my listeners will get sick of hearing me repeat all my stories, but I came into the church without believing in the Trinity or the Incarnation, and the monk who was teaching me, he just said, "Well, that's fine," because I had the desire when I saw the mass. I said, "I want to worship God. I believe in the same God you do, and I don't really want to be a Muslim or I can't really be a Jew. So I see that you're worshiping my God. I need to worship God publicly, and the mass moved me. So I'd like to join Christianity, but the problem is I don't believe in the Trinity or the Incarnation.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal, right? But he's like, I was surprised. He's like, well, it's no problem. We'll just teach you the teachings of the Christianity, and if you accept them, you're Christian, and if you reject them, you're not Christian. That's it.
Well,
So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. What was it like for you tackling the Trinity and the Incarnation? Were you just open to it because you love God so much at that point?
oh, I suppose I'm not theologically at the point of Trinity, I suppose.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
So how long have you been back uh, in the church?
Uh, oh Lord. To be honest, I haven't gone back to a church. It's still just me growing, with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do hang out with specific congregations. And I, like apply like hermeneutics and stuff. And I generally talk about God like almost every day of the week. I'll say like at the very least like 3 days out of the week or something like that. I'll be talking about, Christianity, have a debate about it, etc.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the church is not just some brick building on the corner where people get together. The church is the body of Christ. It's the mystical body of Christ, and we are the mission obviously is to die to self and to live in Christ and have Christ live in us. And that's the body of Christ, that's the church. So you belong to the church, right? So it doesn't matter if you go, I mean, from my Catholic perspective, obviously it's very important that you enter the fullness of the Catholic faith and you get the sacraments and all that sort of thing. That's obviously very important to me, although it's not a good idea to shove that down anyone's throat. So I won't do that, but I'm just letting you know honestly that it is important to me. But at the same time, you're a member of the church. You're a member of Christ's body, mystical body, and so that's what I mean when I talk about the church. Okay, so obviously you will understand that although I believe you are a member of Christ, I also know that you're not a member of the Catholic Church in good standing. So from my perspective, there's growth to be had there. but there's also no pressure. You've got to follow the truth where it leads you, and God has a plan for you, and so there's no pressure.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I see. Oh, I was actually curious what your thoughts were since you said that. There's a lot of people who say like even like Islam, like lots of other religions, you can't force religion on people, and so
Yeah.
you'll have people like it doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense. In fact, I just found out recently that the Turkish, the massacre of the Armenians or whatever, the Armenian genocide. It was not actually done by Muslims. It wasn't Islam. It was actually done by liberals. It was done by them. They tried to force convert. They tried to, kill people and stuff like that. For Islam, that's not really what, or for religions in general, that's not really what you want to do. For you want to convert them and you want to know they're converted. The same inside Spain, etc. Uh, you're it you have to have that truthful thing. So but there's a lot of people who use like sort of fear mongering. I was wondering what you thought about that.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. We need to like it's like uh, the basic go-to analogy that I will always use is romantic love, okay? Marriage. Uh, it's pure, it's holy, it's intimate, and it's fruitful because you can have children, these sorts of things. I don't have children, but uh, I'm ordered to have children. Like I'm a male, my wife's female, like
Yeah.
real, genuine, old-fashioned male and female. Like I'm a real man, she's a real woman, not like the modern day stuff where people just do what they want to do, right?
Sure, sure. The liberal religion, yeah.
Yeah. But so with the romance, like the love between a husband and his wife, the bride and the bridegroom, this is talked about in the Bible, and we're going to talk about the Bible, I hope, a little bit later on. But it talks in the Bible about Christ and the bride of Christ, the church, and that it's a very intimate relationship, and it's consummated. Like to say it's sexual maybe is a crass way of putting it, but just there's an intimacy there. There's a mystical element to it, and so when you talk about forcing religion, to me that's a sort of spiritual rape. You do not force the intimacy and the joy and the bliss and the respect, mutual respect, and the mutual self-giving of man and woman. And you certainly don't force that union between Christ and his church. You just don't do it. There's
Yeah.
never, ever, ever any excuse for fear mongering or force or coercion or like, you have to do this or you can't feed your family. Like we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years, a lot of coercion, a lot of force. And I don't want you to talk about by name what's been happening because I'll lose my YouTube channel again. But you know what I'm talking about with the liberal religion. It's like it doesn't work. People don't like that. People don't like
Yeah.
being forced because people have free will and people want to follow the truth where it leads them, and they want the freedom that is in truth because uh, Christ is the truth, and Christ will set you free. And you're only free if you're in Christ, right? You're only free if you're serving Christ. So I'm not sure where you're at in your journey with Jesus Christ. You said you weren't too strong on the mystical stuff, but there's a lot to grapple with. There's a lot to familiarize yourself with through meditation and prayer and through just thinking, just contemplating, thinking about the one or God and what it means to be a creature. And it's mind blowing, really is mind
Yeah.
blowing.
I bet, yeah.
So, what's your prayer life like without divulging anything that's too personal or whatever? But you said you think about God, you talk about God, but what's the friendship with God or the relationship with God? How would you describe the intimacy that you have with God at this stage in your journey?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's a bit difficult. Obviously, whenever how would you say? I don't get to pray every day. 'Cause I don't get to pray every day. I think it's a very private thing. But it's definitely something I'm growing a lot more in. But I was raised Christian, so it's something like there's a relationship. I fall back onto it. It's nothing alien to me.
Okay,
But
let's do a little awkward game here where I'll put you on the spot just a little bit, and you can feel free to squirm your way out of it if you don't like it.
Sure.
But I'll set an example. I'll do a little spontaneous prayer, and then I want you to try to say one if you're comfortable with it. Okay? So this is just for fun. It's just silly. It's not too serious, but I just want to sort of get the training wheels on for spontaneous, sincere prayer to God. So I'll start first. So here's my prayer. I'll say in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and I'll say, God, thank you. I love you so much because of all you've done for me, that you created me, that you sustain me. And I hope that you will allow me, give me the grace to know you, to love you, and to serve you in this life so that I can be happy with you forever in the next life. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So I just made a quick little prayer there. It was completely spontaneous. And I'd like you to try to just do a prayer if you're not too awkward and embarrassed to try.
Sure, sure. Yeah, dear Lord, could if you could please help me out through the next whatever is happening. Whatever, if you could help me out through whatever. Uh, Dear Lord, thank you very much for everything that's happening. I appreciate the insights that I'm gaining, etc. Thank you. And amen. That's it.
That's nice.
That's it.
That's cute. You know what it reminded me of? My favorite prayer of all time, which is, uh, Dear Lord, I do not know what will happen to me next. I only know that nothing will happen that was not foreseen by you and directed to my greater good from all eternity. I adore your holy and unfathomable plans, and I submit to them with my whole heart for love of you, the Pope, and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Amen. That's one of my favorite prayers because it says, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening now. I don't know what's coming toward me. Like tonight on my way home from work, I have like a 45-minute bike ride home from work, and there's a snowstorm, and I got a flat tire almost right away. I was stuck in the snow in the middle of nowhere with a bike that doesn't work. So I thought it was horrible. I was praying to God to get me home in time to do this interview with you. And I called a taxi. It took like half an hour to get there, but then it turned out to be this really amazing guy that we had a really good connection, good friendship. We exchanged information, and he's good friends with George St. Pierre, the UFC fighter here in Montreal. He showed me
That's
photos. It's really cool. So it was like a magical
yeah,
moment, a magical moment. And so that prayer that I pray every day, I don't know what's going to happen to me next. I only know that it's part of your plan and it's for my greater good. It's amazing if you think about life that way, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. No, definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's the source and everything. Yeah,
We just need to learn to trust God. Like it's so simple. It's so simple, but it's very, very difficult. It's difficult to let go of the wheel and Jesus take the wheel, that sort of thing. It's incredibly difficult because we're so full of pride. Can you talk about your sort of emotional or spiritual maturity? Like you're 32, you said?
yeah, yeah. 32.
Are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
learning, are you learning how to control your appetites, your anger, your lust for food or sex or all these sorts of things? Are you learning about yourself because you're Christian?
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, it's been how would you call it? Again, as I said, I use the Bible as a litmus test,
Okay.
um, and the congregation for it. So there's in a lot of senses like obviously it has a positive effect. Um, so yeah, yeah, but and yeah, but I'm also at the age where like I'm starting to realize I'm getting older. So so at the same point, it's like like I'm sure it compounds it certainly, but at certain points I'm just like, wow, I'm older now, So but yeah, there's yeah, the fruit of the spirit definitely is and everything charity like my debates have become a lot more effective, and I don't mean them in the sense of debates, but just I'm
Interactions.
just more yeah, yeah, and definitely in general. Yeah. Like I'm way quicker to forgive, way quicker to be charitable. And the beautiful thing about it is I don't like I just saw an article about it. I think it was like Not the Bee or something. And they're like, yeah, we the somebody went out there and made I don't remember what it was, but somebody like pushed a thing and like they got caught up in it and then they were like, yeah, just having reasonable, rational faith and stuff in the Lord, it allows you to have this wider, purview, I suppose, of things and be able to see past the bickering that, like at, any age, any place or whatever that politics or liberalism or whichever that they really grind you into.
For sure. Hey, I just want to give a shout out to Rebecca, Bread of Life. She's in the live chat right now. You know about her, right, Sean?
Yeah, yeah, from the Twitter.
Okay, yeah. Well, she's going to be on my podcast tomorrow, and she's a sweet lady. And I think you mentioned that you're into the charismatic movement. Can you just touch a little bit on that, like the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, maybe the charisms? I don't know if you speak in tongues or these sorts of things, but what is it about the charismatic movement? Are you like officially part of it, or just curious about it?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't remember that.
Oh,
I
you
don't
didn't say
remember.
that? You didn't say
I,
that?
I might. Well, I don't know. I think I said something about charisma. Oh yeah, I prefer
Ah.
the. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. But are you aware that there's a whole movement like
I just
even within the Catholic Church there was like a charismatic Catholic movement?
I didn't know there was a Catholic one. I actually just found out about it today. I looked up on the thing and they oh wait, maybe I'm not sure actually.
It's funny, there's so many movements within Christianity, you'll never learn about them all because there's just too many, right?
Yeah, it's really good. There's a lot of diversity inside there, which is, like actual diversity, spiritual diversity. Yeah.
It's the that's the liberal word of the century.
Yeah, it is. And it's so ambiguous. I mean, obviously we know it's ambiguous, but I mean, like until you like reduce it into something, like we reduce it into logos, that you can actually determine like what is actual diversity. And so yeah, like I think Galatians 3:28 said it just perfectly well. You're neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female, slave nor freed. You are one in Christ. And that's like actual freedom. And yeah, there's just so much to it. I just love it. Like that it's like a way out of, being enslaved, like with the Hebrews, Israelites, before. Like there's just so much like ontological basis, like ethical basis and stuff like that that is just extremely actionable.
Yeah. Well, let's before we get into the philosophy quiz, which is just a bit of fun, let's talk some serious talk about the Bible, Old Testament and New. Are you very familiar with a lot of it, or with some of it, or parts of it, or mostly the New Testament? Just talk me through where you're at with the Bible and which versions you like to read.
Yeah, right now I just read the NIV, but I've read the Dewey Rames, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I got recommended that. Yeah, I've read the Old Testament several times, like kid Bibles and like bits, but mostly I debate historical linguistics, hermeneutics, so I end up covering a lot of verses through that.
Ah, that's pretty intense. Very
Yeah,
intense. Yeah. So, I want to get a sense from you. Like, I'm just asking you to sort of gush a little bit about your favorite parts of the Bible. Like, what is the sense that you get as an overview? Because I think it's important. The reason I'm asking you this is because I think it's important for all of us as Christians to have knowledge, of the juicy parts of Scripture, but also to have step back and have an overview, like a bird's eye view of the whole story of salvation history. Who are the Jews, and what did they do, and what was Judaism all about, and who's this Messiah that was supposed to come, and did he come, and who is he? And then when the Messiah comes, like what does that do to Judaism? And who are the Christians, and what is the church, and who are the apostles, and just a basic overview from your perspective. I know you're not an expert, and maybe you're still young and have a lot more to learn, as we all do. But what's your sense or your impression about the overall meaning of the Bible in the context of salvation history? Because it's an ongoing thing. The project, ultimately, from God's point of view, is that He wills that all of us be saved, none of us be lost. And so that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, we have to keep our eyes on Christ, keep our eyes on the prize being God Himself. And that's what heaven is.
yeah,
Heaven is being in that intimacy with the Trinity. So, what do you have to say about the Bible in terms of overview and salvation history?
yeah, no, yeah. Do you know what dispensationalism is?
Yeah, the end times and the rapture and all that stuff.
It's you know what covenant theory is?
Not
It's
particularly.
okay. So covenant theory is just that there's the Old Testament and then you have the New Testament, and then you go into one to the other. And dispensationalism is that there's multiple covenants. And I don't
Okay,
know the exact full thing, but
okay.
it's like there was an Adamic covenant, and then the Abrahamic and all that
Right,
stuff.
right, right. Yeah, that's ringing a bell now. I seem to recall that there were seven, if I'm not mistaken, the first being Adam, the seventh being Jesus Christ, if I'm not mistaken. I think that Noah obviously has a covenant, and
Yeah.
there's a Catholic guy who was a Protestant before, who teaches at the Franciscan University of Steubenville. I can't believe I can't remember his name, but he's a famous guy, and he talked about these covenants, the seven covenants, and how it's an ever widening circle of people. So you start with the first human pair, the couple, that sort of marriage, and then you have the family, then the tribe, then the nation, and then finally with Jesus, it's the whole world. So
Yeah.
that's all I'll say about that. I'll let you continue on and talk about your overview of salvation history. So you were saying with this dispensationalism and Judaism, that fits into the big picture, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely a dispensationalist. So, you like Anselm? You the ontological argument from him.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, do you like that over the cosmological, by the way, or which one do you prefer?
I just for a little bit of background, when I was an atheist, I thought about the ontological argument pretty much every day for 8 years, without you know without being able to refute it or confirm it. But to me, it's sort of like a koan, like a Zen puzzle that you just play with in your mind, and it brings you closer to God. That's what I think.
That's
Um, I think my hunch is that it's sound, but it's a question of communicating that truth in a way that is convincing. I don't think he achieved the communication of it that makes it readily understandable. I think it's a mystical thing where if you're a Christian, then you intuitively know that it's true, and if you're a non-Christian, then it's just something to chew on that can bring you closer to God. Because that's certainly the effect it had on me, for sure, for sure.
certain.
What's your take?
Yeah, yeah. The cosmological, I used to like the cosmological a bit more, but that just deals with actions, and so I prefer being. And so I agree with you about Anselm. His ontological argument, it's really good, but I think Aquinas said it just as well. He's like it's or he may have been saying it for his, but that the arguments they aren't going to convince atheists, but they
Mhm.
are invaluable for Christians or whatever. But Gödel actually made like a modal logic. I don't remember which one, but he made a modal logic version of
Ah,
ontological one. And it's really good. It's logical. It's like it's modal logic, formal logic. So it's really good.
wow.
Um,
Yeah. Are you
yeah.
familiar with Scotus's modal argument?
No, what is this?
It's amazing because it's a strict demonstration in the Aristotelian sense of the word. Like it's a strict demonstration, meaning that the not only are the premises necessary, but the conclusion is necessary. Everything is a posteriori. Like these are all known manifest truths that we work with. So it's one of the rare a posteriori proofs for the existence of God. It's the only one that I know of, and it's a strict demonstration, and it's all about efficient causality. And this is what I was trying to say about Descartes. He threw out two of Aristotle's four forms of causality, or modes of causality, or whatever you say, and that was a big mistake for the modern science. But with Scotus, he focuses on the efficient causality, and it's independent of time because he's looking at any given moment in time. Every effect is the result of a series of causes in that same moment that are independent of time. And so this is how it goes back to the first efficient cause, which is necessarily atemporal, and that's how it gets to his principle, which he will flesh out into, for lack of a better term, flesh it out into the God of classical theism and the triune God of Christianity in particular. So it's very fascinating. It's not easy to read Scotus's work, but it's worth the effort, I think, and I think you've got the intellect to tackle it. And there are certainly works that talk about his proof. So something
Yeah.
I would highly recommend. Highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite proofs for sure.
Nice. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
believe? Do you? Sorry to cut you off. Do you believe in evolution, that you evolved from an ape, or do you believe, like I do, that the whole universe is less than 10,000 years old?
Uh, Well, I don't believe the universe is less than 10,000 years old. But I do believe in the ontological aspect, the ontological argument. It's similar to the cosmological, but it just goes by being, right? Um, uh, so anyways, I think time is like hierarchized. So, and we do see this with general relativity. With mass, it affects time. Or bigger mass affects time. It makes it slower or whatever. And so I do think that there's a hierarchized time, and God's time is obviously it's very Neoplatonic. It's very, like the one, and so God exists in everything. He's throughout everything, and then as it goes down, it becomes more particular. So uh, with less mass or whatever it would be, math is universal, but um, yeah, so in that same sense, I do believe I apply the dispensationalism just in that same sense. I don't accept covenant theory, or I don't disagree with it. I don't disagree with anything. I do think there's some truth to it, obviously, but I do feel like there's that dispensationalism really shows this growth into God, and so I really do appreciate the growth into God and how I was actually asked on a somebody else asked me. They asked, about like the verse inside the Sermon on the Mount. It's on Matthew 5. I don't remember um, but it's like at the start of it. But it said one of the versions, like they say something like, "Did Christ didn't come to get rid of the laws? He came to fulfill it." And so he was like, "Well, how do you account for that in terms of like like Exodus, or Leviticus, some of the Mosaic laws?" And I was like, well, if you don't think about it in terms of, the consequences for it, especially from a modern perspective, if you think of it in terms of what the being is, and that's injustice, the justice, was justice, which obviously got them to be free, got them to not be enslaved by any, like the Egyptians, and allowed them to, you know, develop past the Abrahamic conception of purity and stuff like that, towards something which is more fulfilling. But if you think about it in that sense, like you can see the steady growth in that sense. And I suppose I would say, in terms of the evolution, how I think of Adam and Eve is that they earned the first covenant. I'm not sure. I'm not too mature in that conception. I don't really have like a lot of viewpoints on it, but I do feel like that it's coherent with my views. So.
Lots to unpack there for sure as you continue your reading and your study of Genesis, one of my favorite books in the Bible. What are some of your favorite books in the Bible, just off the top of your
Yeah,
head?
yeah, I like Second Corinthians a lot. I
Yeah.
like Romans. I like
Oh, yeah.
Romans a lot,
Yeah.
and Hebrews is good, uh, and Acts is good. But yeah,
What's Hebrews about in overview? Because I'm having hard time thinking about what it teaches.
sure. So, like I said, I use the historical linguistics hermeneutics, so we end up just like going through verses and stuff like that. Hebrews 7 goes over Melchizedek,
Okay.
the priest, and it
Okay.
goes over how.
Oh, is
Yeah.
Hebrews the one that says the better, everything's better with Christ? We got to better this, we got to better that. Is that the one?
I feel that's yeah, that sounds correct. I think that's where Paul put in a lot of his typological algorithm.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because I seem to remember, I thought it was either Romans or Hebrews, but I always get those two confused. But I think that's the one where he said we have a better, a better high priest, we got better sacrifice, we
Yeah,
got better this, we got better that. Yeah, I think that's the one. Book
that's
of
Hebrews 7.
Book of
Yeah,
Hebrews. So we're
yeah,
not sure. We're not sure if Saint Paul wrote that.
yeah. That's what they say. But I mean, but yeah, I feel like there's just so much. How would you call it? Um, I feel like that is most in that does a lot of work for what Paul was trying to do, the way Paul tried to read in the Old Testament, etc. And so I feel like that's if it's not directly from Paul, I mean, it's definitely from one of his, like assistants or something.
For sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rebecca says, "Cool. Those are some of my favorite books too, Shawn." So she's right there with you. And I was going to ask you about the Bible. um, you know, oh yeah, the first question I wanted to ask you about the Bible is: do you believe, as I do and as my church teaches, that it's inerrant? There are no errors in any parts of the Bible and in the Bible as a total unit.
Yeah.
There are no errors. Is that something that you believe?
Yeah, I'm not a literalist. I don't think you're a literalist. Are you a literalist?
Well, we are told to take the literal meaning first and then to look for, much like St. Augustine said, he said, first we do the literal reading and then we can look for the other layers of meaning. And as St. Augustine also said, if something cannot be literally true, then obviously we don't take it as literally true and we look for different spiritual readings. So, I'm not going to accept any contradiction ever for any reason, and because God doesn't approve of any contradiction. God doesn't allow any contradiction whatsoever. Now I can say that good is evil, up is down, left is right, and all these sorts of things. I can say that a man is a woman, a woman is a man. I can say that with my lips and my tongue and my vocal cords. I can say it. So it's a contradiction in that sense that I'm saying something that's not true. But the reality is not permitted by God. I'm allowed to say the lie, but the lie itself will never be manifest, right? Like the square circle just doesn't have a reality.
Yeah,
I can talk about it all I want. It doesn't give it reality. So
yeah,
there's no danger with God. There's this is the beauty and the joy of being a monotheist, is that we have the absolute objective eternal truth. It's God Almighty, and it's so beautiful to be in contact with that in even though our contact here below in this fallen world is fleeting, and it's as St. Paul says, we see as in a broken mirror or as in a glass darkly, or however he phrases it, right?
yeah. No, yeah, I do agree with that. Yeah, I agree. It's inerrant in the same sense that you do. And yeah, I think it's and still interesting that yeah, we have God who's the virtue of virtues. You know, he's the time of times, the Egypt, the eon of eon, or uh, I feel like that's really good. The older paganism, like it's such a step up from paganism where they had like they anthropomorphize like justice or like wisdom and stuff, and they had
Yeah,
them all separate, and then their myths just tell it perfectly out. You can't have these separate. They can't be a god. They can't be separate. Otherwise, they end up fighting. You have to, or there's conflicts with them. You need something which grounds it. You need God, God.
yeah. That's where your Neoplatonism comes in handy too, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I
The
agree.
one, the one. Yeah, well, the analogy I like to use with atheists when I debate or argue with atheists, I don't debate, but when I argue with atheists, it's about the perfections. It's like justice, truth, health, beauty, all these perfections. Um, they the pure perfections, those perfections that it's better to have than not to have, because this is how we define the perfections that God has. They're called pure perfections. Now, a circle is perfect, but God's not a circle, because circularity is not a pure perfection. It's a perfection, but it's not a pure perfection. So when I'm talking to the atheist about the pure perfections, I always just use a very intuitive, common sense argument, which goes as follows. Like, when you're pursuing health, is it theoretically possible in your worldview that you're leaving behind truth and beauty and goodness? Because in my worldview, no. If you're pursuing truth, you're pursuing beauty, and you're pursuing justice, and you're heading toward all the goods, because all the goods lie in one and the same source. And you don't need to be a religious, God-fearing person to understand that that's common sense and that that's intuitive, right? Do you agree
No
with
doubt.
that?
Yeah.
Do you agree with
No,
that?
100%. Yeah, I mean, again, Plato, Aristotle, you have all the philosophers in the world, and they all lead towards them. So yeah, they all need him. They all need him. You need the prime mover. You need the form of good, or the demiurge, or you need the one, or whatever. You need God. Yeah.
What do you think of the Book of James? Because I always like the Book of James. Have you read it?
Uh, yeah, yeah. I'm familiar with the one about the works.
Okay.
Oh, actually, one second. Actually, about that. So, uh, you would say then, just in that same sense, that our work is derived from our faith.
Well, yeah, I when I discuss my faith with Protestants or non-Catholic Christians, I love conceding all the ground to the non-Catholic way of seeing grace and faith and all that sort of thing. And I truly believe in my heart there's not much difference between the Catholic point of view and the non-Catholic point of view when it comes to grace. Everything is grace, absolutely everything is grace. And so I just give you everything. I give you like sole fide, sole gratia. I give you everything because that's what it is. It's all like I'm a bit of a, I tend toward the like I'm a Platonist basically, right? So I'm all about the one. I'm all about God. And so I'm willing to deny my own existence. Like I'm willing to go that far. Like the reality that I have is inferior. Like you said, it's a borrowed reality. It's a participation. It's a very limited participation in life, that persist, that subsistent being that is God, right? So relative to God, I am not. I am not. So yes, everything is grace, and certainly my conversion to God in 2009 was 100% grace. And the only pushback you'll get from me as a Catholic is to say that I could have said no to that grace, but I didn't. By the grace of God, I didn't. Okay, so it's a very tricky thing to articulate, because I will say very happily that everything is grace, and it's only by the grace of God that I converted. But I did say yes to that grace, and then I'll come right back onto your side of the fence again, and I'll say, by the grace of God, I said yes to the grace. So I think we need grace. We need to cooperate with the grace, but to cooperate with the grace, we need grace. It's only by the grace of God that we can cooperate with the grace. So it really is murky, murky waters. And the simplest way to say it is that everything is grace, and all the glory to God. And I don't even exist, relative to the being that is God, and the goodness that is God, and the life that is God.
Sure. That's the Armenian Calvinist distinction, you mean? Is that what you mean?
Well, I mean, I definitely believe in free will, 100%.
Okay.
100% believe in free will. So there's a tension that will never be resolved by our puny little human brains in this fallen world. Okay. I'm very happy as a Catholic. We have a lot of tension that's unresolved and unresolvable in the Catholic Church. So what the Calvinists did is they went ahead and resolved the tension, and now they have an absurd worldview. Okay. Oh, no offense to my Calvinist friends. And there are other people that go the other way and say, well, I have free will, therefore God is not sovereign and God's grace is ineffectual, or whatever, right? Like there are people that try to resolve the tension, and to their own peril. So I would rather keep the tension and say, look, I'm like a little child. I'm coming to God like a child. I don't understand God. I don't understand myself. I don't even understand one hair on my head, much less how my digestive tract works or anything like that. Am I going to start teaching God about free will and grace? No, I'm going to come sit at the feet of God and just thank him for being good and for creating me and sustaining me and giving me the grace to love him, to know him, and hopefully to serve him.
Yeah. Um,
So
I,
what about free will for you? How are you feeling about the free will conundrum? Because I know if you're talking with atheists, you're going to definitely run into some conflict, because most of them don't believe in free will.
yeah. I might be a little more Calvinist in that sense.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah. I've got a verse that came up, but I found, well, obviously, uh, that that just sort of justifies it a bit. I believe it's in Romans. I'd have to look it up real quick, but it says that we're slaves to righteousness, and it might overlap with your view. It might
Okay.
overlap with your view.
Yeah.
It says we're slaves to righteousness. We're slaves to but for us, we're slaves. Or you could be slaves to sin, et cetera, et cetera. And
Yeah.
so I do feel like whatever we and then obviously you see, I think it's in Leviticus 25:42. I'm pretty sure it says that God saved the Hebrews by making them his servants or slaves. They only use one word, which is abed. So that's so in that same sense, I do feel like that's where I kind of get a lot of my viewpoint from. I feel like I am a slave to God. I am a slave to pure being, and that's what decides my actions. And if I want to grow, if I want to have a higher quality life, if I want to have more choices, more freedom, et cetera, then I have to grow closer to God. And so,
100%.
and then also, yeah, and so yeah, I feel like we have overlap with that. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, you
yeah,
would admit along with me that we don't have a lot of free will and we are slaves either to Satan or to God or to the world or to ourselves or whatever. We don't have a lot of freedom, but you would admit with me that it's a non-zero freedom. We do have some freedom, right? You would admit
I agree
that
with that.
much.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Call it compatibilist if you want to. Yeah. But yeah. I just focus on that so much more because I don't feel like I feel I get a lot out of that. But I
Okay.
was gonna ask about the James thing with the work. Um like considering and this might bring it a bit more towards modern sense but considering where we are, we're like, to be honest, like I feel like the atheist movement is like really bankrupt at this point. Like there's like that's Sam Harris, etc. I think a lot of his beliefs like really fell down in that sense. So I but in that same sense, we still do have a lot of work to go. And while historically we've, like I want to say like in Western history, like the biggest ethical things that happened, the most ethical things that happen, they're all growing within, Christ, evangelicism, whatever it is, like the university systems, all these sorts of things, they are specifically based off of an ethical basis or ontological in growing closer to God. But in that same sense, it feels like there's been a sort of a drop, I suppose, since maybe the teetotaling thing that happened. There's been, and I feel like we have to grow further past that. And so I do feel like as our faith does gain more towards how like the world develops and stuff like that, as our faith does gain, that our works do have to gain just as well too. So I was sort of curious what you thought about in the current sense. I know some Protestant churches are trying to get rid of like some Sunday services so they can do things, and in some sense you can see that like, okay, yeah, there's a negativity in some senses of that, but in a lot of senses it is trying to grow that fruit of the spirit, so it is it is the answer, so we can grow it towards the answer. uh, so
Can you present me choice A, choice B? Which one and which one do I like better? Like you just present it to me like here's what's on the menu. Which way do you think the churches should go? Because
oh,
I didn't get
sure.
a clear picture of the two ways, like you said. Just sort of summarize it into like the two different paths that you see going forward, and I'll tell you which
Sure.
one I intuitively think is better.
Sure. I'm a monist, so I didn't mean I didn't mean to participate put it in the sense of two thing.
Okay, okay.
So which one do you think what's a way that you think that we can grow closer to God? What's a way that you think we can? Those are just examples. I'm not
I
sure if they
see.
are going to succeed.
Okay, so you were not trying to set up two different visions for me?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I like that you said you're a monist. Like that's I have very strong monist sympathies, and basically I'm a monist at heart. So I'm just sort of like connecting with you as a monist brother because it's kind of rare in the West to meet a monist. Monism is huge in the East. It's not very big in the West.
Okay.
So I really do sympathize with you on that, and we just have to be a little bit cautious. We have to do, we do have to realize that, uh, there's an economy of salvation. God did will to make a universe and creatures and all these sorts of things, and we do have
Sure.
a certain reality, and our choices do matter, and there's a heaven and hell awaiting us, and
Sure. Yeah.
these sorts of things. But other than that, like I mean, the ultimate reality is God, and like we're headed towards God. Hopefully, that's where we're going to end up. So yeah, I'm honest in that sense. Here in this world we have to be monotheist, but later we can enjoy the monism, right? That's the way I see it. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Sure.
the way to go forward, if you want just like a my sort of elevator pitch for like what we should be doing as Christians in the world, like to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth, is that what you're sort of asking me?
Yes. With the modern, yeah. With everything, what's
Given the
some step?
context of secularism.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I my focus as an individual is okay. There are two aspects to my walk with God. One is like I'm a member of like society and of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, and I have my prayer life, the sacraments. I've got, I go to a confession. I'm going to go to confession tomorrow, hopefully, and then I'll go to the Eucharist, and I've got these sacraments, and I'm married, so I have that sacrament, and when I die, hopefully I'll get the last rites sacrament that will help me. get to heaven and these sorts of things. So the sacraments and prayer are very important, and the community life in the church, like being part of that community, singing and praying together, publicly worshiping God. When I found God, that was the most important thing, is I have to publicly worship God. I can't just sit at home worshiping him. You don't have that same impulse, obviously, or you would have found yourself at church that you attend regularly. But that was a big, very big, strong impulse for me, which is counterintuitive because I'm an introvert. I'm not really fond of people generally. Like, I mean, I'm friendly to my guests because I can have a one-on-one conversation about the things I'm passionate about, philosophy and religion. But in my waking life, it's just like I don't have a lot to say to most people because I'm just not interested in the Kardashians and sports. So so there are two aspects to my walk with God. One is that external thing where I'm part of society and the church and prayer and the sacraments. The other part, though, is the four last things. I'm thinking about death, judgment, heaven, and hell. That's my obsession. Is like, I'm a lowly sinner. I'm unworthy. Like, I'm not treating God with the respect that he's due, and I'm trying to have virtue. And as someone who studied philosophy, I'm sure you know all about virtue ethics. And so I'm trying to work on myself by the grace of God. I'm trying to kill the old man, as St. Paul says, so that Christ can live in me and I can live in Christ. And so, as one of my favorite quotes in the Bible is John the Baptist, one of my heroes in the faith, John the Baptist, who said, "I must decrease, Christ must increase." So that's what it's all about. That's the second aspect of my walk with God. I must decrease and Christ must increase. And so that involves, on the practical level, getting some self-control and some, you know, discipline with my base appetites and stuff like that. So the East is very, very good. I'm talking about the Eastern Orthodox fathers, the Desert Fathers. They're very good at talking about the appetites and how to control them and these sorts of things. I find it very, 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 very challenging to say no to my appetites. If something is salt or sweety or oily or whatever I want, I tend to just justify it like, oh, I'm cute, I deserve a little treat, so I treat myself, and I'll be, so I'll have self-discipline, self-control later. Like when? Tomorrow? No, tomorrow is going to be just like today. I'm going to be a lusty glutton tomorrow too. So the whole self-discipline thing is constantly on my mind, and I don't beat myself up about it too much, but I'm very much aware that I'm in love with myself, and I can't go to heaven if I'm in love with myself. I have to detach from this world, and I have to, uh, you know, put God first. I have to be so in love with God that I'm not, fantasizing about my next meal all the time or whatever it might be. So I hope that it wasn't too rambling of an answer, but they're basically two answers: the societal part and then the interior life with the trying to get self-control.
Yeah, that's I do feel like that's do you know what kenosis is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Emptying of the
The-
self, is it?
Yes, that's it. So uh yeah. Yeah,
Is that something that you think about or you struggle with, or are you trying to, is it theoretical for you as it is for me? Because I'm not very good at fasting and all these
that's
sorts of things.
that's interesting. Yeah. Uh well I man. I don't know.
Is it too awkward? Do you feel awkward talking about that?
No, my brain. My
Okay.
brain right now. Sorry. I
Too
can't
many
say
thoughts, too
anything.
many words.
I'm really trying to throw things out there. Okay. Well, I was gonna ask about the kenosis. I was gonna because you brought it up with the Descartes, and you brought and I was yeah. And so with the Eastern, it sounded like you were into the Eastern philosophies, which you said.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was wondering if that's something that sort of plays a part.
Yeah, well, I mean, uh I've never been a fan of Eastern religions, Eastern philosophies, Buddhism and Zen, and I've dabbled in it. And Hinduism is certainly interesting, and Sikhism and all these sorts of things. They're interesting, but I don't feel at home there. I feel very much at home in the Western tradition, philosophy and religion of the West. Okay, but having said that, we do have in the West, in the West we do have Platonism, Neoplatonism. We have even some of the Eastern Orthodoxy is bled into the church, so that we have access in a very digestible way to some Eastern ideas. So that would be the extent of my sort of getting my feet wet with ideas from the East, and so I'm sort of going out of my way to explain that I'm a very Western rationalist kind of guy at heart, but I'm also a monist at heart, and I also am very attracted to certain aspects of the East. And it's just like, how do I integrate that? So it's all about integrating that, because I'm not naturally an Eastern type of being, if you catch my drift.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna ask if you feel like John the Baptist sort of fulfills some of that in the sense
Yeah,
that you said, yeah,
yeah. He's a real bridge builder. Like he's like that Old Testament, New Testament. He's right there. Like he's a wild character. But like I said, I would, I'm like that rich kid that came up to Jesus. Do you remember that when he's like, "Oh, I do this and I do that, and I'm so perfect," and da 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 da, and Jesus is just like, "Well, if you want to be perfect, you have to give away everything you own." He's like, "Oh no,
yeah,
no." So that's kind
yeah,
of where I'm at, And when I read that story, I'm like, "You idiot! Just that's the God man Jesus Christ, wisdom incarnate, telling you what to do, and you're like throwing a pity party for yourself. Like, just do what he says, right?"
yeah, and we all face that, yeah, in the face of
Yeah. So
like overwhelming
I
evidence.
criticize that rich young man, but I'm the exact same guy. Like I'm not detached from my my ego, my pride, my desires, all these sorts of things. So I'm in the same situation. So I'm really critical of that guy because I'm critical of myself, but it's really hard. That's the crux. That's the existential angst of for me personally of being a Christian like that. It's just the self-awareness, like I'm very weak, very selfish, and very prideful. So that's painful. That is painful. That is really embarrassing and painful.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a nice problem to have, though. I mean, instead of being lost,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it. Don't get me wrong. I would not trade it for going back to my foolish ways with atheism. No way. No way. Oh, I'm very, very happy and grateful to God every day. Thank you for allowing me. I don't feel worthy to be Christian, but here I am, right? Here I am. So
yeah. Uh,
can you relate? Can you relate to a lot of my attitude?
oh, yeah, definitely. I think it's yeah, definitely. I think it's a human problem. I think historically there's the God versus nature, or man versus nature, man versus whatever. But yeah, I think that's the big one. That's the one that
Yeah.
underlies all of it.
Did you like the existentialist philosophers or did they annoy you?
Yeah, I don't think existence precedes essence. But I do like Kierkegaard. I do like Kierkegaard. I will give that. His take on Abraham was interesting. So even the Continental, the postmoderns and stuff like that, I consider them valid, but very unsound. So it's definitely fun to go through them.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have 10 minutes to go through the philosophy quiz with me?
let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm just gonna go and try to find it now again on I found it on your Twitter. So I'm just gonna go and take a look. And I'll just read the questions out loud and we'll come to a consensus answer. Okay.
Okay.
Where the heck is your page? I'm trying to find your page on Twitter. Here it is. What's going on? It won't show me your content. Tweets and replies.
It got it got liked on yours. Check
Oh,
your
okay, check my notifications. Here we go. Okay, got it. Okay, so take the test. Question one. Take the test again. Okay, because it took me to my old results. By the way, I have a thumb. What do you call that? A finger puppet of Hegel on my fridge from my atheist days. Did you like Hegel?
I think he's interesting. Yeah.
That's a good word. Yeah, a good word to describe. Good adjective. Okay, question one. So-called quote unquote evil people are really just ignorant and in need of knowledge of the good. This is such a Platonic question. I was hesitant to crank it up because I knew I'd just be getting full on Plato points for this one. What do you say?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think.
You want to crank it
So,
up? Agree
what do you mean?
100%? You want to say
Yeah, I
agree
do.
or
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
okay? We're going for Plato here. The best Insight is gained by approaching a subject in a practical and orderly manner, indexing it and mapping out what is currently known about it. So this seems to appeal to my rationalist tendencies. I gave this uh, a mild agree instead of a full on agree because I want to leave some room for mystery. What do you say?
No, that's exactly what I agree. I think yeah, definitely.
Or do you want to
Faith,
crank it
faith.
to fully agree?
I know because I there was a thing with William Lane Craig, and he had something that everybody was going about, like, oh, what if you have 1 in a million chance, to accept something that's so good, like why would you accept that? And then somebody came up and they're like, well, yeah, if I have a 1 out of a million chance that my seatbelt's going to save, my child's life, I'm going to take that every time. But if I'm going to have a 1 in a million chance to trip on the sidewalk, I'll just take that. So I do think like faith has a place inside there.
Okay. Next question. I don't like this line of questioning which is peppered throughout the quiz. It says, I have a flair for controversy. It's like, what? I don't know how to
Yeah,
answer this. I left it
yeah,
neutral. I left it neutral. What do you say?
that's pretty fair. Yeah, I think I put it without I put it without it. Yeah.
Neutral? Neither agree nor disagree? Because it depends on the situation, right? You would agree with me?
Yeah, I think there's a, how would you call it? Within that there's something that is unifying sometimes, like obviously some controversy is like, okay, I'll look at this and then you can come together. But in general, I do say negative, so I go towards the full disagree.
Okay, you want to go disagree?
Yeah, full. Yeah.
Full disagree? Okay, okay. I'll go with you on that. This is another silly question. I mock people's religious beliefs. Well, if they're atheists and Satanists, yeah, but not usually, no.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
how
don't
to
think.
answer this.
Yeah, for me, I don't consider atheism to be an actual ideology
Okay,
or religion.
okay.
So yeah,
So you would definitely disagree 100%.
that's right. Yeah,
You don't want to mock the Hindus and everything.
yeah,
Okay, I agree with you on that. Question 5. I am more interested in things that can be measured, than some pie in the sky type of thinking. Now, this is they characterize faith-based beliefs as pie in the sky, which I take offense at. But I am definitely not more interested in things that can be measured because God cannot be measured. You bonehead.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
So
I think I.
strongly disagree.
Oh, for that I'm neutral. I do. I think I think God is he's not something we do have to be able to reach him. So that's how I
Okay,
sort of interpret it.
okay.
So that
Hold on. So
yeah,
you're saying you are neutral on that, and I strongly disagree. So you want to put it as mildly disagree? Is that a good compromise?
that sounds perfect. Yeah.
Okay. We'll see what we end up with. Are you already getting an idea of how this is going to be a different result from your previous result?
No,
You
I'm not
can't
sure
keep
to be
track?
honest.
Okay, well, it'll be a surprise at the end. My view of life is often misunderstood. Well, obviously, I'm Christian and people hate Christianity, so I put strongly agree for that. What do you say?
I don't feel like Gines is misunderstood. I put the opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like it's completely there. Um, yeah, that's how I think of it.
Okay, so hold on. Talk me through this. Talk me off the ledge here, because I'm thinking like that everyone's against me because I'm Christian. You'll be persecuted because I was persecuted. These sorts of things. So talk me back from that to where you're at.
Yeah, that might be a bit similar with not thinking of atheism as an ideology. I don't remember what the verse is, but it says it's you're a fool if you do, and I take that very literally. There's no way you can. They're usually naturalists or something like that.
Okay,
So
okay,
that
okay, 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 okay. So because you see these people as merely fools, you don't see yourself as misunderstood by them. You just see them as a bunch of apes, basically.
so I see them as like whatever they're coming into it with. It's a bit more. It's a shallow criticism. It's very
I
shallow.
see. I see.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Can we compromise and just mildly disagree with that then? Because you wanted to fully
that's fine.
disagree
Yeah.
that you're misunderstood. Let's just see what the result that gives us. People fuss too much over their banal everyday problems. I'm not sure what to say about this.
I don't think people do. I feel like everybody is trying to grow into God as best as they can, and wherever they're at. So I do, but obviously that's I think the banal thing. It's trying to has a different conception or domain of what it means. So in that, I guess I'd put slightly disagree.
Okay. So you want to give the bulk of people the benefit of the doubt that they're seeking God and stuff like that. Okay, I'll go
Yeah,
with that.
definitely. Yeah.
The wise human being avoids the allure of power and fame. I'm going to say right now, I strongly agree. Strongly agree.
The wise human being what?
The wise human being avoids the allure of power and fame.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my strongest answers. Like, what
Yeah.
the? I shock people with crass actions and words. So here we have a reiteration, a rephrasing of that same thing where they're trying to say that I seek controversy, I like being rude and da 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 da. So I guess we could disagree with that, but how strongly do we disagree? You don't want to be
Um,
crass, do you?
yeah, yeah,
Strongly disagree?
yeah,
I think we should. Even though I am an idiot and I just can't control my mouth. That's why I like the Book of James because he talks about how hard it is to control the fire that is the tongue.
yeah.
Animals are better, quote unquote, people than most people. I hate this question and I strongly disagree.
I think, yeah, I don't think animals are as, yeah, but I do think animals, I'll say I do think animals do seek God
Yeah,
just as
yeah,
well.
of
But
course, of
yeah,
course, of course. But they're not better people because they don't have free will and reason.
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
Okay.
they're under judgment, but yeah, they're still need to, yeah.
Simple pleasures are the best. This is why I got Epicureanism because I agreed strongly with that. What do you say?
That's so, yeah, that's why I try not to, that's,
You don't want to feed into their
assume,
algorithms?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to assume it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so,
Mildly agree, slightly agree.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Let's do that because we don't want to end up being Epicureans. Most people are, oh God, most people are unable to think for themselves. Woo!
Yeah, I don't, I just strong disagree.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I did agree with that one when I first did this test. Beauty in this world is, but I went with your answer. Beauty in this world is proof that there is a transcendent higher world. We both 100% agree with that.
Yep.
Generally speaking, only the highest specimens of humanity interest me. What did you
Oh,
say? What did you say?
that's very interesting. So, because that's very relative, like what it means, like what the highest
Right.
specimen. Obviously, we seek whatever we
The
think is the
saints.
highest
I would
specimen.
say the saints.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I guess
But
I
I'm
want to
not a
say agree.
snob and I like the poor, I like the underdog, I like the regular folk, I like the blue collar workers, I support the truckers here in Canada. Da, 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 da. I want populist uprising against the tyranny of these mafias and stuff like that. So I'm torn. I'm really torn. It depends on how you interpret the highest specimens. It depends on so many things. So I'm going to leave this one up to you, and I'll buy whatever argument you give me.
I really feel like we shouldn't interpret it in any liberal way. I don't feel like anybody else should interpret that in a way. I see God, so yeah, I strongly agree.
Okay, you'll strongly agree. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, that's good. Because I saw Jesus Christ, I said strongly agree. Okay, because he is the height of humanity, right? People who profess to be gravely concerned with the so-called objective truth are really just professing their weakness. Strongly disagree, and I'm sure you agree with me that we strongly disagree with that.
Like,
It's all about
yeah,
objective truth. That's what it's all about. We're not being weak by saying that. That's reality.
yeah.
We're on question 16 of 35. Most people need to be led and controlled. Oh my God. What do you say?
Oh my Lord, that's another one because I do feel like we have to be slaves to God. We have to be slaves to righteousness. But I really feel like this is like the philosophy, but I'm not going to answer it in the philosophy way how I think they're doing it. I feel like that's Platonist. Uh, well, yeah, maybe that's trying to test for Plato. Uh, but yeah, I guess I would say strongly agree, but just because I'm not using it from their philosophical view. What would you say though? I'm curious.
Uh, most people need to be led and controlled. Well, I mean, like you said, like we need to be slaves of God or not God, and so yeah, I whether we like it or not, we will be controlled by our slave master. Like, and when I say controlled, that isn't if God is the one that we put ourselves in slavery to. That's the best thing, and we have the most freedom in that slavery. So to say that I'm controlled by God is to be controlled by freedom, which is the best thing. So it's paradoxical, but I would just say mildly agree because I'm just scared to go down some rabbit hole of like
Sure.
with
Like, oh
with the
man.
communist version of this answer. Like it's like no, I strongly disagree with the communist worldview. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's a fine line to draw. So yeah,
Yeah.
between humans and
If I
yeah.
get an email later like, hey, well that quiz you said you wanted to be controlled, so here we go. You know? Yeah. Okay, your bank account's now at zero. Our minds can never comprehend reality as it is. I strongly agree.
Oh,
Okay,
like
let me read that again. Our minds can never comprehend reality exactly as it is. Only God can do
that's
that. Only God can do that.
that's I think that's Kantian. How do you say it? I guess that's the best way to do
Do you
it.
want
But
to
I think I
mildly agree to avoid
that's
some
what I would do.
algorithm?
I just don't want to be, have the Kantian, things in themselves thing or
What would it
whatever.
mean? Okay, what would it mean? You and I wouldn't go down this rabbit hole, but what would it mean for someone to say, I strongly disagree? I think we can comprehend all of reality exactly as it is. What would that mean? Is that pantheism? Is that just Aaron Ra and his evolutionary theory where he thinks he's going to one day understand every molecule in the universe? Like, what does it mean for someone to say, I think we will? And I think we can understand it, reality. Like, what does that look like? That worldview, what does it look like?
Yeah, no,
Is that
I do
hubris?
think I think it can, yeah, definitely. But in another sense, I do think like we have access to God, we can know God. And while all of creation, I think all of creation is knowable,
Yeah,
uh, but not everything at once or anything like that. But
that's hubris. That's
God
complete
Himself,
hubris. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. These are tough to answer. Our base desires as human beings are coarse and vulgar. I strongly agree.
yeah, sure, yeah. That's
You're
well,
okay
and
with
I
that, or you want to mildly agree?
mildly agree. I think,
Okay,
yeah,
okay. Because I'm just thinking now, I maybe answered too hastily the first time I did this because, marriage is good and the Marriage Act is good and these sorts of things, and food is good and eating is good. And maybe I'm a little bit too paranoid about because of reading the Eastern Fathers, like how harsh they were on self-control. So maybe I was a bit too harsh on that. So we'll do mildly agree. Beautiful language is not as important as people make it out to be. Now we're going into the aesthetics or whatever they call this here. Beautiful language is not important as people make it out to be. People should say what they mean as briefly and plainly as possible. So
neutral.
neutral, yeah, okay.
That's me.
The highest truths about this world are not rational or analytical, but can be grasped only through a sort of mystical intuition.
Neutral. That's for me.
You're neutral? Okay, because you like
Yeah,
the rational, you still like the rational and the analytical,
yeah,
grasped
yeah.
only as, because it says to be grasped only through mystical intuition. I think that's false. So yeah, it's okay. Hold on. The highest truths can only be grasped by mystical intuition. I kind of agree, but you'd want to leave it neutral.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's one of those confusing ones. Yeah.
okay, let's leave it neutral. Being preoccupied with whether one is a good person or not is a sign that one is a lesser being.
I disagree with
I
that.
strongly disagree. Would you let me do a strongly disagree?
Let's do it. Yeah, that works.
Okay. I mock people who think they are all that so as to deflate their egos. I disagree with that.
Yeah, same.
Mildly or strongly?
I'd probably say strongly. I'd
Okay.
really try to avoid mocking you.
Yeah. People think I am much harsher and more hard-headed than I really am.
And yeah, I just strongly disagree. I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. I make use of long chains of logical arguments in my thinking so as to root out any contradictions or uncertainties. I don't do that.
I do that. Yeah. What you want to do mildly?
You want to mildly, you do that?
I do that 100%.
Okay,
I come up with that for
let's
everybody.
mildly do it because I do appreciate that. Like I said, I like Spinoza and he does that. So I do that rationalistic tendency. I don't want to feed the algorithm too much, but we'll give it a mild. Like I shock people by saying outrageous and offensive things. This is the same nonsense that we got before. We'll give a disagree, but how strong of a disagree do you want to do?
Oh, I, Yeah,
fully
I think I go strong. Yeah, I think I go
strong.
strong.
It's just not good to be offensive, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
I am a creature of habit. Well, I kind of am. Yeah, I mean, my life is boring. I just get up, go to work, come home, eat, sleep. But I don't like
Yeah,
that. I don't like that. But I do. I on the positive side, I want to have good habits. I want to pray regularly. I want to go to church. I want to, So I agree. I will give a mildly agree. What do you say?
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
Okay.
mild.
27 of 35. The mind is basically like a machine. I strongly disagree. What do you say?
Yeah, strongly disagree. Yeah.
Okay. Even though Descartes may have seen it that way, I don't know. Sexual attraction tends to lead people into bad situations. I strongly agree. I strongly agree. I think if you look at Twitter and the internet generally, the pornography and everything like that, I strongly agree. What do you say?
Neutral. I don't feel like it's I feel yeah, just neutral. I don't think it's a big thing. Maybe I think it's derivative.
What's the what's the divorce rate where you're living?
Um, it was pretty high. Then it stopped. I think like it flatlines. I think about like a few years ago. But we're now in civil union, so like it's not like you're getting the
Okay.
full marriage. So
Well, what led us into that bad situation? It was all this sexual stuff. I would say mildly agree. Will you let me do that?
sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. We'll see what we end up being here. 29 of 35. A profound text can only be truly good if it is. Oh, sorry. A profound text cannot be truly good if it is not beautifully written. I
I,
disagree.
s- I s- I slightly agree with that.
Okay.
I feel like they come from the same bit.
Okay. You want to
If it,
slightly agree? You want a profound text to be beautifully written?
yeah, I do think it should be beautiful. If it's going to be really good, it's going to be beautifully written just as well. I do feel like there's people who like go off one side and then the other side, but I do feel like fundamentally they'll both come together,
Okay. I'll
or they'll.
mildly, I'll mildly agree, even though I'm kind of neutral on that. Okay. I ask a question that I ask questions that others consider crazy. Well, that's mildly true in my case.
Sure.
You're okay with
um,
that?
yeah, we can do that. That's fine. Yeah.
There is much about the world that we can never know with certainty. This is the same question basically that we saw before. What do you say? What did we say?
Uh, yeah, I guess uh oh Lord. Um, yeah, I think
I
mildly.
strongly agree. I strongly agree with this, by the way.
Yeah, I think. Well, I guess I'd say I slightly disagree. Yeah, is what
You
my
slightly
position is.
disagree?
Yeah, yeah, it's that the yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
could you yeah,
if we have two sides of the scale, like there's a scale, a balance, and you put on one side the things that we can know with certainty, and you put on the other side things that we cannot know with certainty, which side of the scale is going to have more stuff on it?
oh yeah, but I don't think quantity is very important. I think quality accounts for. I think you could derive quantity from quality.
Okay,
So
because they use the word much, which is a quantitative thing, right? There is much about the world we can never know with certainty. Like, do you know the orientation of each and every grain of sand on any given beach? I don't.
no, I don't, but I do feel like as long as we know like science or something or some math or something or God or something like that, then you have something which can fundamentally. So I think the qualitative answer is what I mean.
Okay, so you wanted to mildly disagree?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, I'll give you
Don't
that. I'll give you that. I'll take your perspective on it, which that's the problem with these quizzes, right? Is it's just up to the interpretation of the question. There's so many ways to interpret a question. So I'll just give you that one. Question 32 of 35. There is always a clear right and wrong course of action in every moral dilemma.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
No, what do you think? Yeah.
Well, I think from God's point of view, absolutely. But from my point of view, it's not clear. It's not clear. It's not always clear. But I would give you a mild degree. That's as far as I'll go.
Uh, sure. Yeah.
What do you
I
like?
feel
You want to give a strong degree because you want to use God's perspective on this?
no, I feel like we do have access to things like we are human beings, therefore we necessarily must to some degree operate within human rights. And so we're lots of objects. You know, sometimes we identify as a worker, sometimes we we identify through our sex, or sometimes we identify through our ideologies or whatever. But in any case, every single one of them, while they may be they may not overlap necessarily. I do feel like we do necessarily operate morally, and I would say we only operate morally, and
Okay.
we operate morally to what we're a
You've
slave to.
convinced me. You've convinced me, and I've also realized that this is a trap. Like if I actually disagreed, I would be voting for moral relativism, right?
That makes sense, yeah.
Because they want me to say that there's not a clear yes and no, black and white morality. It's like, okay, now because of what you said, I'm leaning. I want to say strongly agree. What about you?
That makes sense, yeah.
Okay, you totally changed my mind on that one. 33. If people challenge or confront me, I confront them right back with little fear of the consequences. I'm not sure. I mean,
I'm old now. I don't
uh,
know how to think about that.
you want to
Um,
mildly disagree just because you don't like confrontation?
yeah, I mean, like, I think, how would you say it? Um, I feel like I choose, for whatever battles I choose, that's a strong agree. But there's no reason to have like half the battles that you do whenever, like in politics and stuff like that. They're like, oh, the Rittenhouse thing and stuff like that. Uh, I feel like if you follow that too much, that bravery thing, just similar like the virtues, it ends up leading you towards like you know
Right.
where the gods, they don't necessarily lean up towards God. Yeah.
Okay. So, we'll mildly disagree then? Is that what you said? Or neutral? Mildly
I
disagree?
I think I'd say mildly disagree.
Okay.
I don't remember. I don't
It's
remember.
tricky. It's tricky to answer. I stir up controversy simply for the sake of arguments. We'll disagree strongly on that one. You
Yeah.
you don't just stir up the shit for no reason, right? 35. This is the last question. A life marked by the absence of pain is better than a life marked by the presence of pleasure. What do you think? This is a Stoic
Oh,
religion, by the way.
okay. By the absence of pain is, could you say it one more time, please?
Yeah, a life marked by the absence of pain is better than a life marked by the presence of pleasure. So, if you could avoid pain, is that better than having pleasure? What do you think?
I think I voted for no pain, or at least slightly disagree for pain. I don't need pleasure or something like that, so I'm
Okay,
like very, yeah,
okay. So you've got a Stoic strain in you. That's good. So yeah, you would mildly agree with that. It's better
yeah,
to have
yeah,
an
yeah.
absence of pain. Okay, that's good. I think I agree with that. Let's see what we got. Okay, I'm gonna share this on my. How can I share this on my screen? Are you able? You're not able to see my actual live stream, so you can't see this, but you'll see it later. Okay.
Sure.
Um, Drum roll, please. Oh, you're gonna be happy. You're gonna be
Did we get
very
play?
happy. We got Play-Doh.
Yes. What do we
We
get them for?
got Play-Doh. We got him 80% Play-Doh, 70% Epicurus. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I think I
Cool.
got yeah, a decent Epicurus too. Yeah,
Did you?
yeah,
Let me hide your AI. Abraham's getting in my way, so let me hide him. Okay. Very cool. So we got, you'll see this on your screen when you watch it back. Your traits are closest to those of Plato. 80% Plato, 70% Epicurus, which is not bad. I've kind of always begrudgingly admired his moderation and whatever. Next, you won't be too surprised to hear is Kant, who is an interesting guy, but you were kind of shy to get him, I think, when you posted your thing. Everyone
yeah,
else is very low. Diogenes, who's a total pig, is at 10%. David Hume, whom I admire, he's a Scottish guy, very skeptical. I like reading his stuff. He's 20%. Nietzsche's also 20%, and Aristotle got 45%, which is you know not too
I,
bad.
I I forgot they had Diogenes. I kept wondering who they were talking about for the stirring up stuff. I thought that was Socrates. I was like, that's such a bad reading of Socrates. I'm so, like a Plato.
Wow, yeah, that Diogenes, he's fun. That's the same reason I liked Donald Trump in 2016 is because he's kind of like a Diogenes character, just stirring things up.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I voted for him actually in 2016. It was a protest vote though. I was just really, really because I was a Democrat even like a week, even while I voted for him like a week after I finished. So I consider myself socialist. I really like a democratic socialist
No
before
way.
Bernie, but Bernie, yeah, yeah,
Ah, really? Okay, you're a Bernie guy.
yeah, I do like Bernie. I'm not for politics now, but yeah, I
Yeah.
did like Bernie. It was like a week after I saw the protests against Trump and like everything Clinton said about like, oh, they go low, we go high. I was like, well, that's exactly what I like, but what are you doing? You know, not Clinton herself, but you know, like the party while during the 2016 thing. And then like yeah, I just kept going into this thing, you know, that was like it wasn't high whatsoever. It was very low, a lot of low blows. And then yeah, so then after like a week, that's when I was like, I'm not, you know, Democrat, I'm not left wing, I'm not democratic socialist or any of that stuff. So
Wow, what a journey! What a journey you're on. Very privileged to meet you. I got to get back to my wife and do the rest of my evening, my weekend. I got a couple more interviews tomorrow, but I really appreciate talking to you, meeting you. I hope you come back and chat to me some more. You've got a lot to say, and your journey, I think, is just beginning, right?
that sounds great. Thank you.
So God bless you. I hope you pray for me and mine. I've got you enrolled in daily mass. It's a perpetual mass every day. You and your family are being mentioned in the holy sacrifice of the mass. It's a representation of the once for all sacrifice on Calvary of the God man Jesus Christ. So a lot of grace is coming your way for your ongoing conversion for you and your family, and that includes your siblings who might be a little bit off track right now. Who knows?
That's yeah. God bless you. Thank you much.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you. All
Take
right, bye.
care. Take good care. Bye.